Francois Smith's Class B Sandmaster was previously campaigned by Tom Smith and has proved to be competitive in the past. And former production vehicle champions Genil de Villiers and Francois Jordan had a 2-minute lead in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody. On board the second-placed proudly South African Nissan Hardbody of Hannes GROBLER and Richard Leek. The misfire hadn't slowed the pair much, and they had over 4 minutes in hand over teammates Voss and Griffith. A wrong slot cost Woolridge and SKJOLDHAMMER in the Team Ford Racing Ranger valuable time. Voss and Griffith nipped past, but the Ford pair soon hauled them in again to retain third place on the road, but were classified fourth on corrected time at the end of lap 1. Despite being fourth on the road, Voss and Griffith, who started 7th, had a 1-minute lead over the Team Ford Racing Ranger, but there were unconfirmed reports that both Voss and race leader de Villiers were suffering from motion sickness. Mundell and Bond in the Nissan V6-powered Prolong Bat were the overall leaders in the special vehicle category, which gave Nissan the overall lead in both categories. They had over 4 minutes in hand over 2002 winners Weir Smith and minute in the O'Hagan's Kopenhagen Hotel Super Team Jimco. Cliff Barker and Vic CAMPHER were 7th on the road in the Barker Performance Products Land Rover, but were actually 10th overall and 5th in Class T on corrected time. The pair had had a clean run so far and had decided to maintain a more relaxed pace for the first half of the race and then pile on the pressure on the last 130-kilometre lap. Dowse and Rutherford were 8th on the road but only classified 15th overall and 3rd in Class A on corrected time after losing time with 3 punctures. Taylor and de Chalaine started 16th in the JRE and had moved up to 9th on the road, but on corrected time had lost the Class B lead to Andrew Birkin. Frikkie Botha and Gavin Morton started 11th but were classified 19th overall and 1st in Class S at the end of the first lap. The Atlas Copco Chicago pneumatic Jeep with Richard Carolyn at the wheel was 11th on the road but 18th overall and 6th in Class T on corrected time. Schroeder and Peckham in the Team Ford Racing Ranger started 22nd, had moved up to 12th on the road and were now 2nd in Class E and 9th overall on corrected time. Cronje and Birkin started 21st in the Castrol Toyota Hilux and were now 13th on the road and classified 14th overall and 3rd in Class E on corrected time. Class B leader Andrew Birkin started 26th in the Wingfoot and had gained 12 places on the road and was classified 11th overall on corrected time. Lap 2, and de Villiers and Jordan were still in the lead in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody. Despite the intermittent misfire, GROBLER and Leek held down 2nd place in another proudly South African Nissan Hardbody, but were being hunted down by Woolridge and SKJOLDHAMMER in the Team Ford Racing Ranger. Voss and Griffith were still officially 3rd overall on corrected time in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody. But what of the Class E battle? Cronje and Birkin's Castrol Toyota Hilux was the leading vehicle on the road, but officially 3rd in class on corrected time. Schroeder and Peckham followed in the Team Ford Racing Ranger and were 2nd in class on corrected time. Class E leaders on corrected time, Kassigutsia and Okifuri, started 46th in the Castrol Toyota Hilux and were classified 5th overall in the production vehicle category. Another giant-killing performance was in the making. Alfie Cox and Henny Tersteege started 29th in the Arnold Chat's car Nissan Hardbody and were now 13th overall and first in Class D on corrected time. GROBLER and Prinsloo started 28th in the GBS Racing Nissan Hardbody, now 20th overall, second in Class D, over 5 minutes behind Cox.
Jong, dit het baie beter gewerk as ons beplan het dit gaan werk. Ons het 3 van ons bakkies het baie goed klaar gemaak in die Kaap. Waar ons baie trots is, ons hoop ons kan dit hierdie jaar verder so doen. En daar hou en goed klaarmaak en probeer wen. Ons wil graag die kampioenskap in die GBS team hou vir hierdie jaar.
Marius van Vieren and Chris Maria were third in Class D in the Alberante Land Rover. Dakar star De Villiers and Jordan were still in the lead in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody, but were coming under increasing pressure from teammates GROBLER and Leek in the misfiring proudly South African Nissan Hardbody. The power steering on the Team Ford Racing Ranger had failed, and WOOLRIDGE had to use all his strength to keep the vehicle on the road. WOOLRIDGE and SKJOLDHAMMER were forced to slow their pace and were eventually classified 10th overall and 5th in Class D at the end of the second lap. And Griffith maintained station in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody and were third overall in Class T at the end of lap 2. The prolonged bat of Gerald Mandel and Billy Bond performed faultlessly, and the pair comfortably led the special vehicle category ahead of Dowse and Rutherford in the Nashua Mobile Racing Chenoweth. Dowse picked up 3 punches and would have his work cut out if he hoped to close the 9-minute gap on Mandel. The O'Hagan's Copperlong Hotel Super Team Jimco was experiencing overheating problems, which forced their Weir-Smith and Minute to slow their pace.
No water. There's obviously an airlock in the system, and it's blown all the water out. So we're just putting some water in now, and let's press on.
We've got a electrical problem with Hannes's car, so it's running on 5 cylinders some of the time, but it's going exceptionally well. But maybe worse, Duncan and Janelle have both got a bug and they're both vomiting in the car at the moment. So we're a bit concerned about that because of dehydration and obviously what they're going through. So we'll see if we can get them something at one of the stops.
GROBLER and Leek moved into a 32-second lead at the end of lap 2, and with De Villiers and Jordan retiring their proudly South African Nissan Hardbody with steering problems, the pressure was off the veteran pair, who now looked set for their 5th consecutive victory. With the Duplessis couple and Weir-Smith and Minute out of the running, special vehicle leaders Mandel and Bond only had to worry about Dowse and Rutherford. Schroeder and Peckham took the Class E lead from Coetzee and Fourie, now 4th in the production vehicle category. Marcus Taylor and Mark de Chalane claimed back the Class B lead from Andrew Birkin and were an amazing 2nd overall in the special vehicle category. The ever-smiling Alfie Cox and Henny Tersteege had a 20-minute lead over Class D rivals GROBLER and Prinsloo, while the Class S lead was held by Nick Goslar and Glenn Stain in the O'Hagan's Copperlong Hotel Super Team Raceco. Class S contenders Mohammed Noor and Mohammed Moltzen had a troubled run in their Raceco.
It's okay, we just got an electrical problem here. Try?
That's not in this advance.
Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek as they headed out on the third and final lap of the Nissan Sugarbelt 400. There appeared to be no stopping the veteran pair as they continued on their quest for a fifth consecutive and record-equaling feat, last achieved in 1986 by Grobler and MSA Off-Road Car Racing Commission President Piet Swanepoel, also in a Nissan. WOOLRIDGE and SKJOLDHAMMER had overtaken Foss and Griffith, but were still fourth in Class D on corrected time. WOOLRIDGE and SKJOLDHAMMER, like Cox, have a great success record in off-road motorcycling and have made a successful transition from 2 to 4 wheels. Foss was starting to feel the effects of dehydration brought about by the motion sickness, but soldiered on in the proudly South African Nissan Hardbody. Meanwhile, teammate de Villiers was back at the pits and on a drip. There was no stopping special vehicle category leaders Mandel in Bond in the prolonged bat. Barker and CAMPHER were now third in Class T on corrected time and maintaining a fast pace in the Barker Performance Products Land Rover. Dowse and Rutherford were steadily closing the gap on leaders Mandel and Bond, and the race to the finish would be one of the most exciting witnessed in years. Taylor and de Charlene were still second overall in the special vehicle category and leading Class B, but would be overtaken by Dowse, while John Moore and Fred Werner had overcome a variety of mechanical problems to move into third place in Class A in the Koningsschild Chenoweth. Class D leaders Alfie Cox and Henny ter Steege kept a steady pace all the way to the finish to record a maiden Class D win in the Arnold Chats Cars Nissan Hardbody. Hannes Grobler was inspected.